Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Michael Panozzo, let's try this one more time before I go on stone cold jet lag tilt, buddy. How are you, man?
Good, good.
This is what, like our third try at doing this, at least ish, somewhere around there.
So it's 10 o'clock at night in Danang, right?
10 o'clock at night. Yeah, just about to be about 5 minutes till. Yeah. It's my first time being international, Mike. I'm not doing well with
coping?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I thought you would have an easier time because it runs late. The event, it starts late in the day, runs late into the night. I thought you'd be kind of like almost upside down, so you'd be almost still on your same US schedule because
no, actually the schedule's not been so bad here. Like I think they're calling last matches at like maybe 6-7 o'clock at night, so it's not too bad at all. But the problem is like I'm sleeping from, let's say, 11 to about 3:30, 2:30 some days, and then I'm up to like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm hitting the wall again, and then it's all out of whack. It's all out of whack, Mike. But
that's why God invented pharmaceuticals, son.
I don't partake like that anymore. Although I got a story for that for another day. So, maybe whenever I revamp the Patreon, I'll tell that story. But no, it's been good, man. It's different for sure, but in a great way. Everything's really inexpensive here, which is awesome as far as being able to like enjoy your time like outside of the event. And I'm sure the pool players appreciate and love that as well. And then of course the fans, Mike. I mean, the fans are just unbelievable. I've never seen people so excited. Like it reminds me of when I was a kid and you go to the baseball game or you go to the basketball game. It's that kind of, I'm hanging around. I'm nervous to ask for a photo. I'm nervous to ask for an autograph, but it's like a line waiting by the third base, foul section. You know what I mean? When you're hoping the guy comes by and sign some stuff. So it's been cool though, Mike.
Yeah, the players got to be eating it up. Players got to love it. It's good for their egos. It's
for sure.
It makes them. We've all wanted them to get to the point where they can feel like legit sports stars, right?
Right.
And so this is as close as they're getting these days, and that's great to see. So.
Yeah, I think it's very much. Oh, maybe if you can still hear me, it's very much deserving, which is great. And it's cool to see like this region just take on these guys, and welcome them. And it's not just if you're at the event. I mean, there's so many pool rooms in such a small area, Mike, like of all different I guess classes you would say, you know what I mean? From like what we would consider like a little hole in the wall bar to the premier one, which is like the Perry pool arena. And so but like you go somewhere and it's like I remember when I was a kid, I went to go visit my granddad, and he's the one who got me into pool. And it was one summer. It's this real small town, Mike. And one summer he takes me out and he wakes me up in the morning. He says, "Hey, we're gonna go have breakfast at the it's what do you call it? Like a breakfast in bed little hotel, small hotel there in town." And the town, like if you blinked, you're missing the town. Like it's that small as you're driving by. And so, but I'll never forget it. And this is, I mean, I'm 38 now, and I was probably, man, I was probably less than 10. But anyway, he takes me down there in the morning, and we're having breakfast, and he says, "Hey, can you go over there and go grab me a salt and pepper off that table?" Right? And I go, and there's somebody sitting there, and I'm like, "I'm gonna go grab some of these salt and pepper sitting there, right?" It was Nolan Ryan, Mike, and I was it was Nolan Ryan, yeah.
Nice.
And my granddad knew that he would be there, because he owned like half the town. And so but it was like the coolest thing, and that's what it reminds me of like seeing all walks of life, like adults to kids to teenagers, where they're sitting there, and it just takes me back to that moment when like I remember getting that autograph and how stoked I was, and how much it meant to me, you know what I mean? And it's along those same lines for sure.
Well, and that's I guess this is as good a time to jump into it as any, because it's kind of before we talk about the Perry Open, Let's talk about the battle for Vietnam. I mean, that's behind a lot of what's going on politically in pool with the
Yeah.
WPA and Matchroom and WNT, and they've got WPA bans, and this is the rules we're sticking by. But listen, let's
Yeah.
be honest. A lot of this is about getting a foothold in Vietnam, Indonesia, places like that. And so obviously, this is the first unsanctioned event coming up in Hanoi, and there's a lot of players who aren't going to be there. There's a
A
lot
lot
of
of
players,
surprising players too, Mike.
a lot of players who aren't even going to be who weren't even at the Perry Open, which makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't go all the way over there, and then not you'd go over there only because you could do Hanoi too, right? So,
Yeah.
so what was the vibe around there? As word starts filtering around of who's showing up, who's not, who's on one side of the fence, who's on the other. Some surprises in there, some not surprises in there. What was the vibe amongst the players?
To be honest with you, Mike, I really didn't get too much into it, except for today. Earlier today when there was finally some downtime because it's tournament time and
Yeah, yeah.
strict
It's a business trip.
schedules and yeah, for sure. And a lot of these guys because of the way the economy lends itself here. I mean, it's like they're done, they got a schedule, and they want to go enjoy themselves. And I try to respect that as best I can, and not just that, but like you talk about a deep field. I mean, there's so many stories throughout the entire event, and so many players that I haven't gotten to see in years, let alone a couple of months, especially given the current landscape of things. But I spoke with a couple today, and yeah, Mike, it was I think surprising from my end was that I don't think a lot of these guys made a decision until very recently, which came as a bit of a surprise because, and I had one guy say, you know, had I known I was going to do this, I'm not even showing up for the pair because it's such the value I'm getting on my dollar
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
relative to the field is unbelievable because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
such a deep event, and so I was a little bit surprised there, and that's when I kind of got the first taste of, oh man, this has been. I don't want to say it was like knee jerk, Mike, by any means, but because I think a lot of them are very aware of the seriousness of it, and but at the same time, um, it's time to think about players and their best interest and their bottom line and what
Right.
makes most sense for them because they are individual businesses and brands. And let's face it, I mean, there's not very many guys that are making six figures, and the ones that are, go look at what that looks like after they're done with paying off their travel expenses and everything else throughout the year.
Yeah.
What that bottom line is really like. And so obviously, we do stuff on social media, and we haven't done the podcast in a little bit, but we see everything that's going on there. And I saw a comment this morning when my internet took a shit, and the comment about filler, and that's it's funny and it's all tongue in cheek, you know what I mean? But at the same
Who's
time, like,
comment about Thriller? What did I miss?
no, it was like I forgot the gentleman's name, but I said, "How's everything going?" It was like, "Oh, it's going good, except it disappeared like Filler's fan base," and I thought it was pretty funny comment. But it's like as much as I can get humor from it, Mike. At the same time, I can also understand that, like, hey, man, these guys got to do what's in the best interest for
Yeah,
them.
no,
So
it's
it's a
tough.
yin and a yang, Mike.
I feel for a lot of these guys. I've been, in just messaging with a lot of the players about what are you going through, what are you feeling,
Yeah,
and it's all they're all kind of like talking off the record, but
for
they're
sure, off
really
the
in
record.
tough spots, which is why they all waited till the last second. I think that they kind of knew which way they were
Yeah.
probably going to have to go, but I think they all pretty much waited till the last second, holding out some kind of hope that some kind of miracle door would open up, and all of a sudden everything's fine again, right? So,
Right.
very difficult decisions for a lot of these guys,
Well, let's be
and
honest though, Mike. I mean, they didn't have a lot of faith that WPA would pull that trigger because they bluffed before, So
yeah,
why would they think that they're going to follow through this time, And I can't say I blame them in that regard, Mike. Or I mean, you can call it holding on for hope, but at the same time, it's like you may not also be giving them the respect that they're really able to swing around, so to speak.
yeah. Well, I mean, the WPA was not all of a sudden going to cave at the last minute. I didn't think this time.
Well, they've done it
So
before, Mike.
they had
You
done
know,
it before,
yeah.
but I think that they kept throwing out the olive branch and they kept trying to talk and they kept getting stoned on any kind of discussion. So, I think at one point they're like, listen, it's time for us to move on too. And that's the point that they got to. And so I think that they did themselves a lot of good in New Zealand because a lot of those players who aren't here were in New Zealand, and they sat down and chatted with a lot of players in New Zealand. And as we spoke about before, said, listen, we've tried everything under the sun, and Matchroom just won't budge. And we've got to do this for this reason, this reason, this reason, and these are events we have coming up. And I think they convinced a lot of players that, listen, for the time being, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna relinquish all my national federation rights unless I absolutely have to. And so that's why you got a lot of players leaning that way. The Mario He's the Austrians really surprised me. Mario He, Max Lechner, guys like that. That kind of surprised me. Albin didn't surprise me. Dennis Grave didn't surprise me. Guys like that didn't surprise me much, but there were a few that did. So you got to respect it. It's been tough decisions for them. None of them liked making decisions. None of them are waving, yeah, I'm with these guys and the other guys suck. There's none of that. They're just like, okay, this is the situation I'm in right now. And for the time being, for my well-being, this is where I got to sit. And I got to hope that things get better. I think that they look beyond
And they
Hanoi.
all hope it gets better, Mike. All the players do hope it
And
gets
the
better.
thing is, if you look beyond Hanoi, when is the next Matchroom event? Probably not until spring, right? So there's a lot of time in there where things could change.
Yeah.
So I think that some of them said, I don't like missing Hanoi, but I'm gonna take the chance. I'm gonna miss Hanoi. When is the Predator 10 ball? Is it supposed to be January or February?
So maybe
Something like
like
that. Anyways, they
February,
would have a
March,
chance
somewhere
to
in
play
there.
in that, and they wouldn't be risking anything until the next Matchroom event, which might not be till spring. Um, so I think that a lot of them, they're still holding out hope that over time things can be resolved or some things will be better clarified, whatever the case is.
Well, nobody
So
wants to be put in that position that they're in. Like nobody wants to have to be forced to make that decision. I think like the players don't care who won. It's like being in a divorce relationship, right? Like one of the parents could have something negative to say about the other, and I don't think the kids care. They want to go out there and play. They want to enjoy their summers, so to speak. And they don't want to be forced into a position where they have to make that choice. They want to have the freedom, and there's opportunities across the world, and whether it's hay ball or it's nine ball or it's 10 ball or whatever, for them to be able to, hey, I can pull from this event and not have to travel so much, right? And then I'll get support from X, Y, and Z. I can build a little bankroll, and then I can go and chase a Mosconi Cup spot at, you know, D, E, and F over there, or whatever events they got going on, and so on. But um, them, and when I say them, a lot of players who are skipping Hanoi that we are surprised about, them making that decision, I can't say I 100% blame them because again, at the end of the day, you have to do what's in your own best interest, and nobody knows except for them. Like you can go online on
right.
forums, and obviously, Mike, you know better because you go and talk direct, whether on the record or off the record. But every federation is different, and it's not all cut the same. All the Europeans are not underneath the same blanket. I mean,
No.
um,
Each federation has different perks, different thing, different restrictions,
right.
different whatever, and so the players have to abide by that. And like I said, I was a little
Well,
bit
they also
surprised.
weigh it out, Mike. I mean, they're all big boys, right? So like or you can have the opposite, like a kid like Victor, right, who has had issues with his federation, even though they do provide for a lot of these guys, right, and give them support in some events, but just don't have the best record with them. So he chose to go the other way, and I can't say I blame that kid either, given that relationship, but it's like it's not all one and the same is what I'm getting at, and I think that's something that people don't tend to understand when they, will go online and bust these guys balls because it's like, you know, they until you walk a mile in their shoes, you don't know what the what they go through, Mike.
Right. No, listen, I agree. And In someone like Josh's case, it's easy to poke fun at him
Well,
because he's
Josh is different though because Josh made a fool out of himself.
yeah. Well, he keeps kind of going back on what he says, which is one thing. And in the end, it's not even all that surprising. I think things would have been different had he not already had spots locked up for Reyes Cup and Mosconi Cup. I don't think he would have left that money on the table. But he has those locked up. He can skip Hanoi, still play in those, and still be in the good graces of WPA going into the beginning of next year. And he kind of puts off that point at which he's got to make a decision for the rest, for a year or for 2 years or whatever it is. So he's kind of kicking that can down the road. So it's understandable. Again, it's just not good style that he chose.
I think that's putting it lightly, Mike.
So yeah, it's tough. It's going to be interesting to see what Matchroom's response is when it goes into next year with their top 128 or top 100 or whatever, their WNT, tour cards. These people who are WNT pros, will they still be WNT pros next year? Are they going to have to earn their way back in? Because if there's WNT pros, they can still play in 2 events, whether they're, permanent or not, and still still find a way to make Mosconi, still find a way to whatever. So how is that going to play out going forward?
But if you're, let me just
penalize players.
I don't think they'll penalize players because I think that'll be in poor taste if nothing else. But I'd imagine there's some, and I'm completely assuming here. I'd imagine there's some writing that gives them some way somehow to be able to, kind of
trim someone's nails a little bit.
Yeah. And again, I'm just assuming here. I haven't seen anything or looked over. I just know how proactive they are and how how much they're forward thinking when it comes to writing out things like that. But no, it's very interesting, Mike, for sure. And like I said, I can't blame a lot of these guys for making some decisions. Others are in a better spot, or they don't get the support, or it doesn't make a difference to them. And I get that too. I'll be perfectly honest with you, though, Mike. As much as I can understand, from the player side of it, if I'm Matchroom, I'm pissed. I'm fucking livid, Mike. I'm livid with these guys who, number one, said, "Hey, we're in it together, right? And we're gonna go and be unified here." And then on top of that, like in Josh's case, the last thing I would want to do is after he snubs his face to the biggest event that we know has been a major battleground over the last year, is to go and then showcase him on the biggest event that we got over the next 2 months in the Reyes Cup and the Mosconi Cup, Mike. If I'm Matchroom, I'd be looking at it any kind of way I could to be like, hey, you know what? We made you. We can break you. Go have fun playing Predator events from here on out.
Yeah, it's.
And I hate to say that, Mike.
Matchroom's got emotions about it too. But I'm just curious about like Jason, right? I mean, Jason's a huge WNT fan and a huge WPA opponent, right? So how does he feel about his teammate, especially being captain at Mosconi Cup? Is he going to walk around with his arm around Josh, whatever? And I think he probably will, because at the end of the day,
he will, because they're friends still, Mike. They're still personally, they're still, they're still very much close, and they've been through, they got battle scars together, Mike.
Yeah.
So,
so it's going to be interesting. It's going to make some interesting viewing. It's going to make for some excellent heckling, I'm sure.
They're going to call him a sellout and everything else, and he's just going to have to fade it, and Josh can fade it. I mean, so we know the talent that he is.
You because you might make him stronger.
That's a real deal thing that can happen, Mike, because we've seen it before. Players like Josh figure out different ways to get motivated and get up for the competition, and he's not above that or below it. He can pull from those strings for sure. And but you better be careful, because he's a monster through and through. But here's the thing, Mike, and this is like why when I circle back to this, it's like I think about the guys like Josh, like Albin, like Mario, like Max. I think about all these like premier European players, and while I can understand why they're making their decision, it's kind of makes me scratch my head because I'm like, with all due respect here, like nobody would know who you are if it wasn't for the Matchroom platform. And I'm not saying it like me kissing their ass, but like Albin because of World Cup of Pools, Mike, and Mosconi Cups. Like that's why you became a fan of Albin. You only hate Josh because of the Mosconi Cup and him,
Yeah,
being on those stages. Like that's the only way you get an opportunity to be introduced to these guys because you don't get that same exposure. I hate to use that word because that's like
yeah. No, it's that's a valid point, and nobody, helps make stars better than Matchroom, and the players know that. But each player's got his own on this side of the ledger sheet and on that side of the ledger sheet that they add up and see where they're going to make their decision. Each one of them weighs things differently, right? You
right.
know, I keep hearing the comment about, WNT is only still about the um,
10
top 10
players.
money,
Yeah.
right? And WPA, the money is actually better because the fields are smaller and less competitive, and I can make more money. And it's fine. I mean, that's if that's your argument, that's fine. I think it's kind of, borderline on whether it's even true. But so everybody weighs things differently, and so again, like you said before, you gotta let each of them make their own personal decisions. I don't think it's been easy for any of them. I don't think any of them
No, I don't think so either, Mike.
noses at anybody. I think that they don't, that they feel bad about the side that they've turned against, no matter which side it is. And so we'll just have to
And
see how it plays out.
I think some of them are worried about that repercussions, Mike. And
Backlash. Well, yeah,
yeah,
they should be.
you know,
They should be.
they absolutely should be. But look, I think what you can weigh when it comes to fanfare and exposure and things like that, like you mentioned about the ledger, like hey, guys got bottom lines too. Guys got families to feed, guys got bills to pay. They got to make a living, and so if they can carve out a better opportunity for themselves on the other side, hey, go out there and compete. And if
Yeah.
fans are gonna want to see Europeans play amongst Europeans, then by all means, And I know there's been talk as far as money getting better for them, and I'm sure that was a big selling point in some
Yeah.
of their events as far as when they went to New Zealand and had those talks. And I gotta be honest, I kudos to the WPA for getting everyone together and swaying them at the last minute because I'm sure that wasn't easy to do, and it was surprising in the sense of given their history, Mike. And I know this is like a younger generation of player compared to the ones who are just jaded and bitter and have been screwed over for the last 20 plus years, but they're putting their faith in what they're telling them, right? The players are putting their faith in what the WPA and their federations are telling them, and those
Well,
promises.
and they've done that before and gotten burned before, and
Yeah,
they're hoping
exactly.
they're hoping that this time is different. So I saw a comment from Jerry Rasmussen says most wouldn't be around if it wasn't for the WPA support.
Fair statement.
And that's a fair statement, no doubt, especially in Europe, particularly
Especially
in Europe.
Yeah.
The European WPA federations are the reason that the European players are as strong as they are. It was a great feeding ground, and we've gone, in the past to great lengths to reinforce that and to acknowledge that. But there comes that point where it's okay. The players did get here because of that ground level support.
For sure.
Now let them go and represent your country on the world stage on TV and make Austrian pool look even better. Don't keep them under your thumb and have all these restrictions for them. That's always been my argument against.
I think that further values
at a certain point.
That solidifies what they're able to accomplish, right? Like that validates.
You should celebrate that Albin plays in the WNT and wins the World
Cup. And he wouldn't be who he is if it wasn't for that farm system, Mike, right? Or for what the federation provided.
They're both, I've always said the WPA is a necessary product in this industry. It just needs to run itself better, and it needs to know what it's supposed to be for. What its real purpose is. To me, it should not be trying to be the PGA or Pro Tour because they're not equipped for that, and that's not even what they do. So to trying to be all things to all people is where that kind of turf protection attitude comes in, and that's what kind of is throwing the fly in the ointment, so to speak. So we'll see what happens, but it affected Perry. It's going to affect Hanoi. But let's talk about the Perry Open. What was the event like? It seemed I saw a lot of inconsistent remarks from players about the way the event was run, just different things. It wasn't perfect, but it was certainly big.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, I said this before, I think it's the deepest event of the year as far as from a talent standpoint. Now, as far as the conditions goes and players, I saw, players about complaining about warming up. I don't know. I mean, okay, sure, but it's like everyone has to fade, the same thing, and with that, there's also, I mean, you can walk down the street and get on a pool table within half a block. You know what I mean? Like I'm not even joking. I'm not even
I know.
being sarcastic here. Like it's the amount of pool rooms within like this little condensed area is unreal. Coffee shops, the exact same way. But it's like you can literally walk and find a way to get the arm loose a little bit. Now, obviously, you'd want to go and warm up on the table you're gonna be playing on and things like that. But these are the rules of the promoter, and it's not always going to be ideal. And while I think social media is a very valuable resource in some regards, in others, I'm just like, okay, like just fade it, deal with it, go out there, go give it your all. Like it's what you're here for, But personally, Mike, from someone who I guess has been a little bit spoiled as far as going to like more proper tournaments and appreciating the schedule. And even though the length of days is longer, right, because you're there for really a lot more than what you ought to be. But in that regard, you also get like some freedom. You get a decent start time, a scheduled end time. You know what you're going to do when you're going to do it. You can have dinners. You can enjoy yourself and not be playing till 3, 4, 5 a.m. And you're never going to please pool players ever, and so I think that's part of it. But like if you can just separate that and appreciate the beautiful room, the amount of staff, the scheduling, the logistics that went into it, that from putting on events, it blows my mind how they're
Yeah.
able to accomplish it. Over 100 tables in there, getting all these world class players from all over the world. Everything is so like there was no stone left unturned. All the finishes are in that place were beautiful, and
Yeah.
everything was just great. The food was great. The drinks were great. It was comfortable seating. It like we came back from hard times, right? And we had the Brendan Crockett with I think 180, 160 players, something like that,
Right.
and they had APA event going on at the same time. So we were without tables that we would have normally had for that event, like any other part of the year. And how valuable like having tables is for putting on a fucking pool tournament, right? And so, but these guys, they got so many, Mike, that like they're
Yeah.
able to block off, like they're covering up tables so that way the players can have space and room. And I'm just like mind blown by it, because that you look at that and you're thinking lost revenue. You're thinking about,
That's right.
you, you know what I'm saying? But like those were the touches that they thought of to accommodate the players, And so while I think there's some point into some of these comments as far as, being upset about it, it was great, Mike. I mean, and the tournament lived up to the hype as far as like the chaos of it for me. I'll be honest with you, given the fact that I'm going to Manila, this tournament for me kind of became a little bit of an afterthought, and the uncertainty and chaos of it. It was hard for me to like get a bite on stories, because it's like, okay, well, what's it if Fran wins, Fran's already in the Mosconi Cup. Lucados is a great story, but it's like, where can you put him in right now in October, Mike?
Yeah. Well,
So
let's talk about the event and talk about Fran. I mean, Fran made Carl Boyes look like a genius winning this tournament for picking him for Reyes Cup, didn't he? I mean, he really has a
well,
year.
let me ask you this: do you think he ought to have been picked for Reyes Cup?
Well, it depends. I teased. I think Fran's great. I was surprised that he got picked over David because I'm looking at 2024, and David was right behind Mickey and has been all year and has had a really good year.
Very
But
good
if you
year.
look at 2-year WNT rankings, which is what they use for invitationals and stuff like that, Fran is in the top 5. So it depends on how you look at it. But it's a wild card pick, so you could have picked number 123 if you wanted to, and that's your choice. So I just thought it was a little bit curious that he picked Fran over David at that point. And Carl sent me a note. He said he based it on 2-year world 9-ball rankings. He's
Do
number
you think
5.
that's a Carl message, or do you think that's a Matchroom message via
I
Carl?
think I think Carl made his choice. Yeah, I think Carl made his choice for sure. And so, but the interesting thing about it is, so Fran goes and wins this tournament, and in the semifinals he plays Mickey, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So now he's playing Mickey, and he knows that Mickey's the only thing preventing David from making Mosconi Cup. So
Yeah.
if you don't think Fran had that in the back of his head going into that match, that there was a little extra incentive. I mean, obviously he wanted to win the tournament, but he
Well,
had to know
he got
I'm
lucky to
playing.
get away with that match, Mike. Let's just be real about it. If you saw the end of that match, he got lucky to get away with one there.
Did he
And
get away with
Fran,
one?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, but so that was a big win for him in a lot of ways. It certainly helped David stay in the picture because if Mickey makes the finals or wins this tournament, then David needs to win Hanoi to have a shot. So there were a lot of cool little nuanced things that I thought were kind of fun watching toward the end of that. But yeah, good win for Fran. Great field. I mean, arguably better field than Hanoi is going to be. But I think
It will be.
well, it is and it isn't to me. I mean, it is when you look at number of players and total Fargo rate and crap like that. But Hanoi is a
Don't say the F word around here, Mike. Not right now. It's too late in the evening to get people fired up on the F word.
but Hanoi is a bigger tournament with more at stake and more
Absolutely.
money, and
Yeah.
more exposure and more television. So
Agreed.
it is the field, regardless of the numbers in the field. Hanoi is going to be a really big tournament to win, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on players. So in that respect, I think it's still a bigger, better event than the Perry Open. So whether
Well, I
these
think
guys,
when it comes to a tournament, as far as what Matchroom puts on, I mean, outside of the U.S. Open, I think it's the biggest event of the year, Mike, or at least more prestigious.
yeah, no,
Um,
it's very quickly earned its place into the must see event. So that's great. And so yeah, from that standpoint, I think regardless of who's missing from the field, the Hanoi Open is a bigger event than the Perry Open
look,
for sure.
I'm not going to knock on the Fran pick because I think Fran's good enough to where well, I mean, it makes sense for one from Matchroom side of it. I mean, there's also the Q-Tech side of it as well, being a big sponsor for Matchroom and what role that he plays. But he also has been playing great, and now in hindsight, of course, you can say Carl looks like a genius, and I'm sure Carl loves hearing that, but I
It
think
takes a lot for Carl to look like a genius too.
that's true. No, I'm kidding. I can't wait to see him in a few days, actually, and I'm sure I'll ask him about it. But look, I mean, Fran earned his stripes. Like for me, you can spin it because Fran was so overwhelming for so long, and he's still and by that standard, he'll never compare. But like relative to being a top player, I get it. I get it and I can understand it, and that's not like far fetched for me. And given that
No,
he
not
was
at
on.
all.
Yeah, so
Not
I
at all.
think like that's where it's not so big of a reach, if that makes sense, Mike,
No, I didn't think it was a big reach at all. I
Yeah.
just was.
Yeah.
I just thought he and David were very close because they both had the experience of being in there, which I knew Carl wanted.
Right.
And they both play well under pressure. They both play well. Period. I just thought going into this year, at that point, I thought David had earned a little bit more than Fran had. And I also thought, well, you've also got David nipping at Mickey's heels for Mosconi. If you think David's got a chance to make Mosconi, wouldn't be bad to have him in Reyes as well. Get him a little warm up, get him a little comfortable
Right.
in the situation competition, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. Just those type of things played in my mind, but that's why every captain makes his
No,
own picks, especially with the wild pick.
fair.
You can't, it's your wild card pick. You can pick anybody you want, anybody. So,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
David's always kind of had this like I got to earn my way attitude,
yeah,
and you know what I mean, and he's had to earn it on
yeah,
merit, and he has, to his credit, he handles
yeah.
that like that adversity very, 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 very well.
He's
David.
got a big task ahead of him going into Hanoi. Because I don't know, you have that graphic on. You want to talk about the Mosconi Cup hopefuls for Hanoi?
Yeah, let me see if I can cue it up here, Mike, and restream. The platform that we use is come up with some new toys here. So let me see if I can.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn off
So
the chat.
here's
Oh,
yeah,
the go. Okay, go
here's
ahead.
here's what and I think this is correct. This is not official. This is the way I looked at it. As of right now, I mean, Mickey did well to finish third because it pushed him to that next level. Whereas going into Perry, David only had to reach the semis to jump over Mickey if Mickey didn't have a good tournament in Hanoi.
Right.
Now, because Mickey finished third, he earned enough money where David now has to reach the final in Hanoi to jump past Mickey. And then if Mickey reaches the last 32, David will have to win Hanoi. So
just for full disclosure here, Mike. So this is representing who's going to get the third pick. Is that what you're saying?
This is for the third automatic spot for Team USA and Team Europe. I'm sorry, we should have said it. So if David wants that automatic third spot,
he does.
He's got to hope that Mickey doesn't reach the last 32 and he reaches the final match. If Mickey does reach the final 32, David needs to win in Hanoi. Victor and FSR both have a shot. They would have to win Hanoi. One of those two would have to win Hanoi to jump over Mickey. So that would do it. Unless Mickey, I think if Mickey reaches the finals, he reaches over 90. So if Mickey reaches the finals and loses to FSR or Victor, he would still get in. So, obviously at this point, Mickey's in the driver's seat by a good margin. And
well, sure, but you still gotta seal the deal, and there's a lot of guys there, especially like a David. David is a guy who you can never count out because David.
You can't count him out. Plus, okay, look at all the. This is the point at which now all the players who are missing makes David's chances a lot better, right? David's chances became a lot better when Mario ducked out, when Albin ducked out, when Josh ducked out, when Max ducked out.
Those are fair statements, Mike, for sure.
That those guys ducking out all of a sudden makes David a lot more dangerous in Hanoi than if they were all there.
Well, I'll tell you what.
So for David reaching the final in Hanoi, not a huge stretch. I mean, it's tough to reach the final at any of these tournaments, but not a huge stretch considering all those guys that are missing.
We know his consistency, Mike, and he never really gets the respect that he earns and deserves. And I've been part of that group who has done that as well. But David just he doesn't flinch. He doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And he's a thoroughbred competitor, Mike, and certainly you can't count him out. Those are great points when it comes to the Europeans out there and how that'll go and improve his chances. I think it's a big look, the third spot. Okay, I thought from the beginning there would be two rookies on Team Europe. I think that Mickey is a great story and deserving for sure, but these guys that are on that list, like David and Fran, they can finish. They can make a strong run, And so if I was gonna bet money who I think would make that third spot, I wouldn't. Seeing that David needs to get in the final is tough. That's a tall ladder to climb, so to speak. But if it was top 8, I'm swinging at that bet for sure because I would like David to get in there.
Yeah, it would have been going into this before Perry. It was Final 4, which is still tough. But you can look at someone like FSR and say, sure, FSR could win this tournament. Then he
Yeah, I
So
don't know. I don't know, Mike. I mean, obviously, he's just coming off a win for the Perry.
let's say, I never bet on a guy to win 2 tournaments in a row in the same place.
Never, never. Well, unless your name is FSR, that's for sure. So, because we've seen him do it before. But yeah, I don't know. Mike, time will tell. Mickey's a real wild card here because like
He's been so consistent, though.
he
Gosh darn.
has, he had. No, no, no. That's what I mean, though, Mike. It's like you don't. It goes completely against the grain because you have to earn it to get there, right? But like,
You didn't
even if
just
he
win
does,
one event. It's not one of those situations where you win one event and then you just hang on for dear life the rest of the year.
no,
Up. He's been adding to it. I mean, there was a lot of pressure in this
he's been
tournament
padding that resume, Mike, for sure.
to pad that lead, right? He makes the final four. Good for him. So, and that was a tougher field. So, we talk about David having the advantage a little bit of, or having a luxury of not having Josh and others. Well, Mickey's got the same luxury.
Well,
So
Jenny makes a good comment and says Mickey stayed in combat, and he has. He's been traveling
he's been
all over the world.
over there for the last month and a half.
Yeah, and steady playing tough guys and steady
Yeah.
staying sharp, and it's paying dividends in his results, right? You're seeing that, you're getting that reflection. Mickey is like he's just fighting his way into being an elite player, and it's like every tournament that where you, he went from the beginning of the year, Mike. Like Mickey Krause is not even in the conversation. He's not even in the hemisphere. He's not in the universe. He's not like anywhere part. I could have named a good 15 to 20 guys before I'm getting down to Mickey Krause. And now I can make a really strong argument on why his ass deserves to be there, not just in the Reyes Cup, but come this December, even if it is a wild card pick, which I know goes completely against all religion when it comes to Team Europe, right? Like you have to earn your way if you're a rookie. But Mickey Krause may just be the one to be the exception because that kid is strong and steady, Mike.
Yeah, I agree, but not going to happen.
You don't think so?
As a wild card pick, no.
No?
Jason's not
What?
doing that.
You don't. Who's he going to put on? You think these days Albin's looking better now over Mickey Krause?
No, he picks whoever's out between David and FSR.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well, lots to be keeping an eye on, and we're going to jump.
Team USA too. Look at that.
Oh no! Well, Team USA, we were saving the best for last, Mike. And listen, we haven't done a show in a while, and I think like every one of these topics can be like their own show. And I told Mike when I texted him, well, for me it was this morning. For him, it was I said it might be a long show. I don't know if I got it in me, but what I do got solid internet now. I got power on the computer. Everything's good. So I want to continue this. I want to continue this over the coming days. But before we get out of here, I do obviously want to touch base on the American Mosconi Cup side of it. So we got Tyler sitting in number 3, Mike. We're coming off a win.
Good right now because they, all these other guys need to reach at least the final 8, and you can count, on less than one hand how many final 8s those 3 guys have reached this year. So on one hand, actually. So there's a pretty good, he's in a pretty good spot.
Very good spot.
To get out there and earn it. He helps himself by, reaching the last 16 or the last 8 himself. Puts himself in a really good spot. So yeah, it's his to lose at this point. A lot of heat on the other guys. Obviously, if you look at it by history, the guy who's got the best chance is Sky. It's not inconceivable to see Sky reach in the semifinals of this tournament. So that's what he would need to do, and hope that Tyler, doesn't break the last 32. So, it's a good horse race. It'll be fun to watch. And then all eyes will be on the wild card pick or picks, depending on whether Sky gets that 3rd spot or not.
Yeah, no doubt. I
don't know. What are you hearing in the trenches?
I mean, look, that's been the conversation, ever since the Battle of the Bull. And, we talked about it for the last couple of months, Mike. We know what we've heard, right? We know that relationship between Sky and Billy, right? And we've heard Billy's name be part of that conversation for 6 months at least, and we've also seen him disappear for 10 months. I think
Yeah, but
he
we
picked a
talked
great
about it.
time to win a tournament, though. That's for
It
sure.
was a really good time to show up. It was a really good time to show up, and he showed some nerve and some mettle there. So that really, you know, if Sky really wants to pick him based on needs that fiery competitor, needs the guy who's going to keep the team on its toes, who's going to get in the other team's face, things like that. If he needed, more of an rationalization for picking that person, winning one of
Hold
the
on.
regional.
Say that to me one more time, Mike. Let me take this all in again. Help
What part did
help
you
me
understand?
help me understand that role, Mike. What's the purpose of it again? To do what now?
Well, I mean, as I've said before, I mean, I was at the Moscone Cup the last 2 years where Billy was not on the team, and every European player,
Right.
including the captain, said the team needs not Billy Thorpe per se, but needs a Billy Thorpe. Needs that player. That's what they've been lacking the last 2 years, is that player who is, steam coming out of his ears and charges into the arena like a bull and
Yeah.
carries the rest of the team with him. That's been the argument for including Billy even in the conversation for this whole year, right? So if Sky really wanted to make that pick, he could always do it because it's a wild card. He could do it no matter what, whether Billy played or not. And I just think Billy winning the Pennsylvania tournament makes his, if he wants to rationalize that pick, it makes it a lot easier to rationalize.
Oh, for sure it does now. For sure it does with the Battle of the Bull. And kudos to Billy for doing that, because that was like, look, I don't know if you'd call it a Hail Mary, but whatever stamp you needed to send off that letter, you did it there with that event for sure, and there's no doubt about it. And that was after missing, you know, um, Seattle, and I forgot what the other one was. But I don't know that, like, I've seen Federer get more emotional and engaged into the crowd. Sky can play that role of being, Mr. Rah 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 to some extent. Shane will never be that guy. You're never gonna get him, going that way. It's just not the way it needs to be. And Tyler's all business, all the time. It doesn't matter where he's at. He's always been that way. So I get it. I get it. And while I can, understand when it comes to the song and dance of it all, but I have a hard time like getting like, here's the thing, like, if you're gonna say, hey, merit's important and results are important, okay, well, that's where you got a kid like Tyler, right, who's up there and earning his way when it comes to money. And before the Bull, I think Billy had like somewhere around 9,000, and so even then, after winning that,
Oh, yeah,
he's
it was the Bull,
still.
not Pennsylvania. I kept saying Pennsylvania. Sorry about that.
No, 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 you're good. I mean, he's still, you can see where he's at right now relative to others. We've seen in years past where you had like a BJ Ussery win an event, where you've had a guy like Greg Hogue win an event. And I'm not saying that Billy's in that class or they're in his class or whatever. You know what I mean? Billy's earned his resume on the Moscone Cup because of results and the way he's been out there and that fire that he's provided for it. And I get being that emotional, guy who can, I don't want to say lead people, because he won't be a leader. He'll just be there to like encourage, and how much value do you put on there? But like,
Well,
I
he's put
would,
it.
well, if you're gonna weight results, like when it comes to the Tyler thing and being an automatic, then I would put more weight on results when it comes to big wins. And what I mean by that is like big name wins, Mike.
Yeah,
Like, look,
big player.
big players. Like, I don't put from a dollar standpoint, Tyler had a couple of good wins over the summer. Do I think beating a Sergio Rivas in a final it makes him a better player than X, Y, and Z? I don't. I don't, Mike. Do I think that Billy beating a Vitali and a John Mora in a tournament late, solidifies his year run after mediocre results for the previous 10 months? I don't, Mike. I don't. And I can't wait that over like 10 months of steadiness. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
I agree. I agree with you to an extent. And here's where I'm going to play devil's advocate, and it's not to
Okay.
piss off these other players, and that is you have the list in front of you. Okay, now our guys Tyler, Skyler, Oscar, okay, they played in pretty much all the events, which is admirable, and that's what you need, and that's what you want, and that has a lot of value to it, right?
For sure.
Look at the money totals between them and the Europeans. Okay, they may have had signature wins. I beat Fran. I beat Josh. I beat this guy. I beat that guy. But, you know, none of them have lit the tour on fire during the course of this year. It's
No,
not like,
no, 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 no. You cannot make that argument for sure. You
it's not
can't.
like you might be picking Billy over someone who had 2/3 and a fifth or made the finals of one of the events. Forget winning. You're not at that level. So we're talking about picking him over people who, for the most part, have been top 16 at best. Okay. That to me is not a stretch. That you're not leapfrogging, you know, Fran or David or Victor or someone like that.
No, 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 no. And that's the thing. Like,
there's a big difference there to me.
100%. And you can't brush that under the rug. And I've told this to Oscar. I've told this, where you left the window open for, to make an argument for a Billy Thorpe. You left opportunities on the table. You left money on the table.
Yeah.
Oscar will tell you the same thing. And those things you cannot shy away from. Because if you had like if you can say, well, a tournament opened up for this player or that player, whatever. Billy did his job in the Battle of the Bull. Tyler did his job in those events, to be in that position. So you have to give them like respect in that regard, and 100% right, Mike. You have to go and say, hey, listen, even though you played more events, there's not like you didn't separate yourself enough to say, hey, you know
Yeah.
what, like
Talk about you talk about the wins, the big wins. You look at all the opportunities lost by losses to guys you shouldn't have lost to.
yeah, that's
It's
fair,
the
man.
same, you can make the same argument either way. So, and like I said, I'm not dogging on any of these guys. They all play their ass off. They're all great players. They could all do
Right.
fine in the Mosconi Cup. But all I'm saying is, no matter how the decision goes, it's not like anybody got robbed.
Well, you had me there. Yeah, Rob's a reach, that's for sure.
Rob,
Because you
Rob,
could,
no,
yeah, Rob is, but because then, like, look, because the conversation is still open, now you can start peeling back these layers, and that's when the intangibles show up, right? That's when you think about previous
everybody kept it
experience
close enough where you peel that other stuff away.
yeah. Well, because then none of that other shit matters, right? Because then it's like what I was saying, it's the fucking eye test. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so,
so like I said, I think at that point, whoever he picks, I don't think the other guys can be disappointed and they'd have good reason to, but I don't think they can say they were robbed.
no, well, I think either way, Billy Thorpe's going to be on this year's Mosconi Cup team. That I believe, and I think the writing has been on the wall, and it's now,
You basing it on the motor scooter videos going through Danang or what?
I'm posting on Federer taking a selfie of him and Billy eating
Yeah, right. I've
in,
never seen so
in
many pictures of
Vietnam.
USA players with Billy in the last year and a half.
This is my guy. It's my Billy Thorpe right here. It's my dog. No, look, I Billy Billy can scratch off a lot of check marks,
Yeah.
and nobody knows Billy better than Dan Sky. There's been a lot of coaches and captains over the years to make picks that people have loved and people that have hated, you know, and I think that uh, if Billy doesn't win the Battle of the Bull, then making that pick is a lot more of a slippery slope, than what it is
Yes.
today. And
Yeah.
and
And you
and
might have an
yeah,
argument to get around.
right, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's completely different, Mike. But
Yeah,
winning that event and winning makes a big difference, right? Winning an event makes a difference. And like anything else, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, right? And so while you can have good spots throughout the year, playing in October and playing well in October is always going to be weighted. It just always will be, especially when it comes to a close race, you know. And so for that reason and a few others, uh, I think that this year's team is locked up. I think barring a run from a player in Hanoi, that's the only way. But other than that, I think the team's locked up. So um, it's certainly going to make for an interesting. I mean, the Mosconi Cup was always going to be like an interesting talking point, but obviously, I think it adds more pressure to that. I think it puts more pressure on Sky for that matter as well. Because
no doubt.
you're I don't want to say you're going on a limb here, but it's not the most obvious or unobvious of picks. And listen, you got to show up better than what the team did last year. So I
I
think
think I think what Sky's got to do is no matter which way he goes, he's going to get criticized, right? So I think he makes his pick and turns off his social media button, just flips it off, and start focusing on the cup. I mean, it's really
what do
the
you mean,
only way.
Sky? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. I think Sky just says, I'm not going to read one post about this. I've got my five guys. It's time to get them together and get ready for Orlando. I'm not going to second guess myself. I'm not going to listen to everybody bark.
No,
I'm not.
you can't. You can't because like we started the show talking about bitching pool players. You know what I mean? So like you're never gonna please anyone, and everyone's always gonna have a reason why you're wrong and why this and why that. And you can figure out ways to justify it. Look, at the end of the day, Sky, because of his resume and his credentials, earned the spot to be in the position to make that call, right? From being MVPs in years past and being super clutch and being very
Yeah.
personable and charming and all these things, right? Like made for TV. Look, you earn that spot to make that call. You make the call, and you live by the sword. You die by the sword. And so I'm sure that'll be the pick. But
Well,
I think
since I Nate asked an interesting one, I just want to throw your way. Hypothetically, if Oscar gets the third automatic spot, does he still pick Billy over Tyler?
peace, Opie. I hate to break your heart. Billy's not going anywhere. Not for my money. And
I
while I
agree.
think
I agree. Whoever gets
while
that third
yeah,
spot, Billy. Yeah.
yeah. And look, I mean, listen, I'm not saying anything that nobody else says in private, Mike. So these are all conversations, a lot of them, and the players are very aware and they're sharp and like obviously the Shanes and Skies and Fetters of the world, they don't. I mean, they know who they would rather have on the team, but at the same time, like we talked about with the Europeans to open the show, everyone's everyone wants to make sure their ass is covered, and once your ass is covered, you're sitting pretty good, Mike. It's not so now that's like how look, they got pride of going out there competing, but I think you lost what 11-3 last year. You're going to do better this year. I would bet money they crack five. But 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 and that would be with anybody. I'm not just saying that for like because of one pick over the other, but they are going to do better. It's just when you leave the conversation open, this is what happens. And
Yeah.
so you can go and play all year long. You can go and compete in events all across the globe. But you got to go out there and you gotta just do your job and
You got
and
to earn the
and
spot. I mean, you got to
yeah.
you have to make it a non-start and non-decision. And we heard all those years where the captain got to make the five picks that it was favoritism, people getting left out, whatever. And then they turn around, they made it a couple of
Yeah.
automatics, whatever. Now it's three automatic bids. Okay, I don't think you can get a whole hell of a lot fairer than three automatic spots. So if you don't earn one of those three automatic spots, it, you're open season.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And listen, you got 10 plus months to make an argument for yourself, right? And anybody can be a story, Mike, right? We saw it in Pius to open the year, right? We've seen it in Mickey to in the middle and now at the end of the year, right? And be super steady. We saw it when Fran came out of being a top 16 player into being FSR. You know, we saw like we've seen these guys that um you can have them part of the conversation and they just, you know, you got to go and finish at certain points. We've been high on Victor now for 3+ years. I still love Victor. You know, I still like him. I think his game is great. But um, he can't get there to make that team. You know,
He's Mr.
like
April.
yeah, yeah. Well, Mister Something. You know, and he's a phenomenal talent. You know, but
Uh,
like but like the team and that you're trying to make makes a big difference because obviously you got the Europeans who are full of just killers, so to speak. You know, and so and guys with hardware throughout the year. But look, it's different. Like if you win a major for Team Europe, hey, we'll see you in December. You know, if you win a major in Middle America, we'll see you in December. You know, so
I see our man Carl Boys is on here. Carl, who's number 6 in the 2-year World 9-Ball Tour rankings?
think he knows the answer to that question. I can't wait to see Carl in a few days. I'm sure we're going to be talking that pick and others. Look, I think no matter what, Mike, like no matter what, I'm going to be excited to see in a few weeks the Reyes Cup, and I'm going to be excited to see the Mosconi Cup. And I don't want to like this conversation happens every fucking year where like we pick apart this decision or that decision and things look controversial and doesn't make any sense and oh fire Johan and now 4 years later we'd give the other arm to bring him back for Team USA. You know, like it's funny how things kind of come full circle for some, but it's a great event. I'm excited for the Reyes Cup, but I love the Mosconi Cup, and I want to see the competition. I want to see these guys go out there and give it more hell. You know, I think, like I said, I think they'll get past 5. I don't know how much more I think they're going to get. I don't know how much more I'd be willing to bet they get past it. But it depends on who's gonna fill out that European squad as well, Mike,
Yeah,
because
no
you
doubt
know
about it.
having a rookie versus having an Albin type player on that team makes a massive, massive, massive difference. You know,
So are you
um,
pulling for Mickey and Hanoi or what?
yeah. Well, look, it, I like the Mickey thing because Mickey, every time I think like, okay, that's like it reminds me of Fran to some extent. Like when I would see Mickey, I'm like, okay, great, he did great, but like, okay, you'll come down to earth a little bit. And then he just like he's got this fun, exciting style of play, and he just doesn't give up, man. Like
Yeah,
he's
no,
there,
he's
he's
great.
doing his
Great
thing, he's
player.
streaming his matches, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's staying fighting against Filipinos, traveling to this place and that place. Like you're earning your scars.
He's
You know what I
putting in
mean?
the
Like,
time. He's putting in the
yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
you can't help but respect that, Mike. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like and when you earn respect pairing with results, like that's a pretty good combination, for
yeah.
me. And while I think like I understand why you have to earn your way onto those teams. Certain guys just kind of, I'm here, boys, and I think he's here. I really do. I really do think he's here. I always like he's kind of got this like Omar Al Shaheen type style where I think like, okay, this pocket's gonna go and expose his game because he's so like fast and whippy and all these things, but like it works, Mike. I mean, it fucking works, and he
He's
gets
yeah,
there,
he's
and yeah, he's an exciting player,
listen,
man. He's fun to
I
watch.
like him. I like him because he's a good kid. I like him because he's put
Hey, of
in the time.
course,
Obviously, we've talked before. As a Team USA fan, I would love a rookie on the team
of
just to see how he
course.
handles Florida. But mostly, I'm rooting for Mickey because I like to see new players on the team. Period, instead of the same old
I'm
five.
calling bullshit on that one. You want to see him because you want to see a rookie as
No,
Mister
I like to
Mister
see
Red,
new
White, and
players.
Blue.
Period. I like to see new players in there, new players giving, learning what it's
Well,
like in there. So, so yeah, and I just, I'm rooting for him because he's an easy guy to root for. Nothing against David, nothing against Fran, nothing against Victor, but he's an easy guy to root for.
100%, 100% he is. And I look for. with that train of thought of wanting to get a rookie and see him kind of rattle a little bit, if that's the mindset going into the Europeans, you better be careful what you wish for with that kid, because
Oh, yeah, you
he
better,
can
you
he
better.
can he
Listen, this won't be if he makes it this year. It won't be the last team that he makes. I don't think. And
no, I don't think so either.
get a year under it, but I'll, yeah. Do I want to take my chances with him? His first year on Moscone Cup in the U.S. Yeah, that's the scenario I want to see. But Mickey's going to be, if he doesn't do great this year, which he may well do, and he makes the team, then he's going to be fine going forward.
I'm gonna say this, and it's not, I don't, want to, hurt anybody's feelings here. Okay, when I say this, okay, but it's like what I preface it by saying, I mean this with all due respect. Okay, like certain guys, you understand why you would want them on the team. You know, hey Alex, hey Mario. Okay, I get it. I get it, right? And even tomorrow, like if Mosconi Cup was tomorrow, and I'm thinking about a top guy who would want to make that team, I hope they were making him, right? Because if I'm rooting for Team USA, um, but that kid's a little different, Mike. That kid's a little different. He's got dog in him. He's got fight. And no, when I mean dog, I mean like he's got like pit bull in him. Yeah,
Growl. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's got that like I'm not gonna give up,
Yeah,
and
no. I don't expect him to go into Orlando and fold up like a tent.
yeah.
I just want to see how he handles the heat. But his game is there. But I did. How
There you go,
How did I
Raymond.
miss the fact that it could be Mickey in Orlando? I mean, we're going to put some mouse ears on him and send him into the arena.
You're the journalist, Mike. You're supposed to pick up on things like that long before my jet lagged ass has.
I've never been to Disneyland or Disney World, so Mickey Mouse has never been a big thing to me.
Well, I'm sure it'll make Billiards Digest if he ends up as
I
MVP.
wish instead of being Danish that he was from Finland, because I think Mickey Finn would be a lot better than.
Oh boy, Mike, this show's already gone downhill. No, look, we I appreciate all you guys for being a little patient when it comes to doing the show. I wanted to do it before I took off from the States, and I've been trying to do the last couple of days, but I've just been worn out. Like I said, everything should be on track. The support of the Matchroom team whenever I go out there to one of their events is always great. So I'm sure we'll be able to do shows at least for a minimum once a day, if not more. And then the Reyes Cup, I mean, look, it's just going to be all hands on deck. Mike, you're going to be out there, and I can't wait to just talk to players. Like, I love, and this is one thing that I appreciate about what you said on your post the other day is like when you think about WPA and Matchroom, like we got a season now with Matchroom, and especially with them including the Asian players into this dance, right? Like into this, secret club that everybody wants to be a part of. And you don't get that with WPA. And you know, there's nothing there. Like there's nothing what you're aiming. You're playing all these individual tournaments that are just individual tournaments.
Nothing leads to anything else, right?
Right.
And so again, like I said, I'm fine with WPA running as many tournaments as it wants, but they need to understand and recognize and value the business model that Matchroom and WNT are building, and it's better for them. It's better for pool, period. So, I'm just trying to get people to recognize the difference between the two. It's not. It shouldn't even be one against the other, because they're two completely different business models, two completely different ways of approaching the sport.
Yeah.
They're both good, and they both help grow the sport. So, they need to figure this shit out, man.
Well, I think that this move, like them showing some backbone with following through with the ban, is going to make a difference. And maybe it'll force, getting back to the table and having a conversation, because neither one of them want to put on the show without the best players and all the players for that matter, and so nobody wants to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into something and to have it be anything more than premier. And there's a lot of premier talent. There's a lot of premier characters. There's a lot of premier personalities. Like the game is growing so much. I mean, I'm here in Vietnam and it's crazy, Mike. I mean, to see like players who are, it's not even like the top guys. It's like the top guys and then like the top 60 guys fans recognize and know, and they want their photos and autographs. And it's just like man, this is what it should be, but like you spread it out all over the place, you know,
It
and
can.
now
It
it
takes time.
can, yeah. It
It
does
takes
take time.
time.
You
You
got to
got to
get in
get.
the markets. But like
Yeah.
you're never you're never going to have that chance, Mike, if the best guys aren't there. You know what I'm saying? Like you won't. And as much as it's easy to like shit on filler and all these things, right? Because of going back on his word and what he said and all these things. Look, what I think about Mike is being that kid who is hanging out on the third base waiting to see my favorite baseball player, right? And wanting to get that autograph. And now for a second year in a row, you ain't, all those fans out there in Hanoi ain't gonna see Josh out there competing, and they want to see Josh out there competing, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure they waited and looked forward to that for the last few months. So this was, I'm sure, a big disappointment for them, and it will be for pool fans all over the world, you know. So,
Yeah.
but whatever has to happen to continue having conversations to at least you know, hopefully get somewhere, you know, will hopefully it continues to happen, you know, and in the meantime we'll continue to talk about it. Anyhow, I'm gonna go get some rest because I'm fucking tired. um Mike, I appreciate you for making time for me. You gonna be free tomorrow?
I will be. Yeah, I'll be
What's
free
tomorrow, Saturday?
tomorrow. Saturday, I'll be in the office all day, like I always do on Saturdays for some stupid reason. But
Well, I would like to preview more of the Reyes Cup and Hanoi as well, and really all
yeah,
these topics. We can just like we kind of just barely brushed over the surface. I feel like on everything because it's like I was behind on doing a show with you for the last couple of weeks, and there's just so much going on in pool, and it's kind of hard to like just dive into. There's
what day
um,
does Hanoi start?
ooh, maybe Carl's in there. He can let us know. I think we're 4 days away, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. So I think I get there Sunday, and I want to say it starts Tuesday. So whatever date that is here. So and the draw, I want to go over that as well because that's going to be
That's gonna.
huge as
I'm
far as
wondering. I don't think we're really going to know what Hanoi really is until the day they start playing draw, because
yeah.
I think probably names in the first draw, the early draw, that may not be there anyways, and who the hell knows what's going to happen. So, just hoping for a good event.
Tuesday. Tuesday says box office. So anyhow, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this evening or this morning, depending on where you're at. Big shout out to all of our sponsors who help, especially the ones who helped for the last 2 months. And me being out here, like it's crazy, Mike. Like I never thought I'd be, doing this with you of all people. I mean that with all due
Sitting in,
respect. No, I'm kidding. But but
sitting in Danang doing a podcast and
look at
eating
this.
food, right?
Look at this, Mike. Look at this view of this room. Look at this. And that's how it's
That's
been
cool.
for the last few days. I mean, it's nuts, man. Like I'm a I'm a fan, like first and foremost. You know what I mean? So like to be able to come out to see something like this, to see fans like fan
Yeah,
out and appreciate everything, to see like a really like tech tech pool room like the Perry room is, you know? And so it's um like it's cool, man, and I love seeing competition. I love seeing fans cheer and ooh and ah and all these things, and it's awesome, man. And I want to see. I I've been thoroughly enjoying being in Vietnam, Mike, and I can't wait to go to the Philippines also. But this has been like an absolute dream. So, anyhow, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. You got anything else, Pinoza, before we get out of here?
nope, I'm good.
All right, we will see you guys tomorrow. Keep your notifications on. I don't know what time, probably around the same time though, because this works out pretty well. So, anyhow, we'll keep your notifications on, and thanks everybody for hanging